Did Cynthia Bailey have a hand in trying to get Nene Leakes fired from the Real Housewives of Atlanta? Well, according to Miss Lanithia Leakes herself, yes, Cynthia allegedly had a hand in trying to get her fired from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So, where does this come from? In case you have been living under a rock, you will know yesterday it was advertised that Carlos King would be having Nene Leakes on his podcast slash YouTube channel, Reality with the King. Now, um, at first, when I saw this, the first thing I thought was, God darn it, that Carlos King is the perfect person to interview Miss Lanithia Leakes, because I just feel like watching the interview, you got the sense that she was comfortable. She said that she was ready. This was the right time. And she even was able to talk about Bryson's arrest as well. So, for me, given that she was able to talk about such a personal matter in such a eloquent way, and I say eloquent because it's something that she's still dealing with. I just found it just utterly fascinating. And this to me is the Nene Leakes that we have all come to know and to love, but elevated, if that makes any sense. Think Nene circa seasons 1 through 5, but then think an elevated version of that. Someone who has experienced a lot that life has had to hand to her, but also doing so in the public eye. I felt like this was a safe space for her to really talk, get into her, what's going on with her, and really spill some tea. Okay. Now we're gonna do a recap of it, but we're also gonna talk about it from the perspective of what I understand from reality television, um, and so what we've seen through the years, right? And again, the big headline coming from this part one, because we'll get into part two next week, where they talk about why she sued Bravo. Um, was Nene's friendship with Cynthia, and how she felt as though Cynthia really didn't portray who she actually is on the show. Um, she wasn't necessarily sure why, but she does give Cynthia a lot of props when she says that Cynthia behind the scenes does not let anyone run over top of her, does not let anyone get over on her. She talks about Cynthia putting Peter in his place plenty of times, and that she felt like the Cynthia off the show would have been a better, was actually, she wishes that Cynthia showed who she was off the show, so that it would have provided a better view into who the real Cynthia Bailey is. Okay. And she had made mention of this 50 Cent Cynthia, okay, in seasons prior to, okay? And I think that we did see glimpses of that Cynthia throughout her course of the time on her journey on Real Housewives of Atlanta, but not nearly enough, especially according to Nene. But regarding that headline, she says that, you know, when asked about whether or not, because the friendship was very real, she looked at Cynthia like a sister, but when asked whether or not they could actually rekindle that, she thinks that, she misses the friendship, but it will never be possible to rekindle, quotes, because she knows some of the things that have happened behind the scenes that she could never respect. Now, Nene says she could still work with her, but she says that she was trying to stop Nene's bag with Bravo. Nene says that she knows that Cynthia was allegedly in an alliance with other housewives and producers behind the scenes. She believes Cynthia had a hand in trying to get her off the show. Um, and by producers, I should say also maybe network executives, I think was a part of the quote. Nene says that she felt like if they all stuck together, they would have gotten further when on the show, because even though she has said at different points who she thinks shouldn't be on the show, that was a direct correlation to what they were bringing on the show. And what they bring on the show is like, Nene, from the perspective of someone who participated in the pilot and the putting together of the show, had a personal stake in the show. And so for her, one of the things that she looked at was who was bringing the energy, the events, the participation, to make the show great, who is bringing their authentic personalities. And I thought that was an amazing glimpse into not only what we see on camera, but the mechanics of how the show works and what makes it a success behind the scenes. And I've talked to a few reality television stars who really talk about things that they try to do to contribute to the success of the show. Whereas you see other cast members just kind of showing up and collecting a check. And Nene makes that distinction here too. Nene says at the top of the interview, she does not watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta at this point. It is the house that she built. Okay. And she talked about 3 weeks into the show when she first started, she felt like she really wasn't being herself because she felt like she didn't have the lifestyle that some of the other women like Kim and Sheree had. So at that 3 week mark, she just said that she was just going to be herself, and whatever came out of her mouth is whatever came out of her mouth. And I think that's a testament to this idea that oftentimes, especially in today's world, we think that we need to be like this person or like that person, when in reality, what I have learned is that we just get further ahead by being our authentic selves, whatever that may be, because we're looking to resonate with the people that we need to resonate with, not the people that the world thinks that we should be resonating with. Everybody has a particular audience. So it's just like being yourself will take you so much further than trying to be like someone else, right? They get into, Sheree, and she doesn't dislike Sheree, but she feels like they never really connected, especially after the show began to take off. Their relationship really, really changed. She does feel like, basically that she and Kim were the stars of the show, and that Sheree is just not the most exciting person. First season, she says that she felt like the underdog, and she thinks that, contrary to popular belief, she doesn't feel like she developed an ego after season one. She feels like people just pulled her apart, so she leveled up herself up, and then it was like, well, oh, they're picking you apart, but then as soon as you level up, they say that you changed. And isn't that the theme of what we see with celebrity, is that, oftentimes people are built up to, or they're kind of critiqued to a point where they get broken down. So then they level themselves. And I see this happen a lot. I think not only with, I see it happen a lot with women, but I also see it happen with men as well. And I think it's just natural. You are seeing yourself on television, and then you find things that you probably want to enhance. I mean, even myself, you know what I'm saying? I just feel like I get it. I get that part of it, which is why I always say to people, if you want to change something about yourself, do it, okay? Because you are the person that has to live with you at the end of the day, and you are the person who has to live with how you look. Period. So if you want to do something to enhance it, I say go for it, baby. Don't let nobody stop you from leveling up in your life, because you only get one. Okay. Um. Now, this is where some things get really juicy. She feels like things changed on Real Housewives of Atlanta around season 4 or season 5. Now, it was when Kenya came. Now, she doesn't necessarily attribute this being Kenya, but the illusion is there to me. All right. She says, when the show started, they were really with the men that they were with on the show. Like, Sheree was really with Bob, Lisa was really with her man, Deshaun was with her man, Kim was really with Big Papa. Side note, we do find out that Big Papa, I mean, I think his name, did we already know his name was Lee? And did we already know that his wife's name was also Kim? And they're back together, and Kim and Nene just ran into them. Lee and Kimberly. Okay. Woo, baby. When I heard that, I was like, what? Now say what now, Nene? Now say what? Give me more of this. Who is Big Papa? Like, what does he do? Like, did we ever get that information? You know what I'm saying? I want to know more about that. Okay. And I think that's also something that we're missing. It's interesting that we talked about how Marlo allegedly has some benefactor behind the scenes, and she's even made allusions to that, but it has never been the same level of presence that Big Papa had on Kim. Like, we don't really Marlo doesn't really give that much energy to whoever Big Papa for her was or is or whatever the case may be. And I'm fascinated now that I think about it, like who might Big Papa have been for Marlo? That's a very good question. Nene says that she felt like people started to create storylines and create fake boyfriends, and for some reason started to feel the pressure of, having this relationship on camera. Whereas, as I've completely always stated, I would rather see the reality of you as a single woman or as a single person navigating your life around these other individuals who are married and who have kids or who are, in thriving relationships. How do you all connect as a group? And what is the life like actually like for the person who is actually single? Like, and trying to date versus, bringing somebody in to kind of fake it or whatever. And that's what, to me, what it feels like with Sheree and with Martell. It feels like that to me. It feels a little bit like that with Marlo and Scott Lee. Although, I mean, Marlo and Scott Lee look great together. So does Martell and Sheree. It's just that over the course of the past few years, I feel like we've seen so much of so many questionable relationships when it comes to the dating housewives, that it kind of always feels like now we look at everybody with a side eye. Because just looking at this, just the scenario of that Nene is talking about around season 5 when Kenya came along, there was this idea or this allegation that Walter was being paid by Kenya. That allegation existed. Like, it was a very real thing. So I don't know if that's what Nene's referring to. She doesn't really go quite all the way in pointing the finger, but she does indicate that being one of the things. Also, this idea that Phaedra didn't really want to show how far along she was in her pregnancy. It's like, that really wasn't, something that any of the other women who had come before had, displayed on the show or, at least talked about in some way, shape, or form. She does talk about salary. This was juicy. She made, now we've talked about how much Bethany made her first season. She made 7,000. Nene talks about making 10,000 her first season of Housewives and another 5,000 for the reunion. She says season 2 they didn't really get that much. She says they maybe got 50,000, but season 3 she says they all came together. Now, I wasn't clear if it was she, Sheree, and Kim that came together or if all of them came together, but likely not. Likely not season 3 all of them came together, because that would have been Cynthia and Phaedra's first season coming in. That would have been Candy's second season. So I would imagine it was the 3 OGs that kind of came together for the favorite nations, and all asked for 100,000 each. And then she says maybe 150,000. She said they really started to make a bag in season 4, but they had been knocking the show out of the park for the past 3 years. So they were just as housewives. She says they were really just excited to be out doing something with their lives. She was told to go and hang out with Cynthia because they wanted to bring her onto the show. She says she had never heard of Cynthia Bailey before, although she had heard of like Tyra Banks, Naomi Campbell, Beverly Johnson. She didn't initially think that Cynthia was Housewives material until she met Peter. Okay. She does feel like Cynthia off camera has the strength to be a great housewife, but on camera, Cynthia didn't seem to want to show that side of herself. But that, that's when she talks about Cynthia putting Peter in his place a lot off camera. She was asked if she was ever attracted to Peter. No, that's not true. She just always bumped heads with him. She didn't actually think that Phaedra was a good fit for the show either, because, she was like, she was from where I was from, and she just, had taken such a personal stake in the show. She was really cautious about whoever was joining the show, because everyone at the time seemed to be clamoring to jump on the Real Housewives of Atlanta train. So, you know, she says that she does regret disciplining her son on camera. She regrets showing so much of her and Greg's divorce. She talked about the John guy that she dated, and she still has the Rolex from him. And he offered to actually help put Bryson in a rehab facility, as well as Lamar Odom. She does touch on the Bryson situation, which the clips are out there that you can see on Carlos King's Instagram, as well as some other, Bravo related accounts, Instagrams as well, or reality TV related accounts, I should say. But, she talks about it from the perspective that I feel like we talked about it on our channel. it is a situation where many families have dealt with this, and the person who is involved in it, who is has the addiction, is really on the only person that can fix the problem. There's only so much that as a mom she can do, because that man is 30 something years old at this point. So, Carlos touches on the close your legs to marry me and comment that she made to Kim back in the day, and how people were now saying that to her since she was dating Nyoni. Is it Yoni? Nyoni? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and I'm sorry to this man. But anyway, she says, interestingly, she says he was legally married and getting a divorce. Big Papa was not divorced. Okay. She does get into, she was told that they were separated, and that was the case. Um, hold on for 1 second. I'm not sure why the clip is playing. All right, so she basically says that, for her it was just a different situation, and you know, she was told one thing and she doesn't know what he told his wife. She also goes into the fact that they're not together anymore, and that there was just I got from this conversation that Nene is looking to date a man who has more money than her. I get from this conversation, and this is me just getting it, and I'm going to put allegedly, that he has nowhere near as much money as she does, and that created some level of conflict. I'm not sure to what degree. I also got the feeling that um that he was kind of a little too happy receiving the spotlight. And that's when Carlos talked about this idea of there being only really one star in the relationship, or that there can only really be one star in the relationship. And she felt like if she had stayed with him, it would have been like trying to have two stars in the relationship, and that just wasn't going to work. But when she emphasized that she needed to date, the next man she dated needed to have more money than her, it just kind of gave you the impression that, I mean, while he's paid, he ain't paid. Okay. So Carlos thinks that season 5, Kenya and Portia saved the show from becoming redundant, because season 4 felt weird to him. And she says that she remembered them being great additions to the show. And really, another great reveal, which we kind of knew already, that Portia was on the chopping block. Producers had apparently told Nene and the gang that Portia was going to be on the chopping block. Carlos knew about it as well, because he was going to be coming in and producing the next season. He said that she needed to stay, but Kandi and Nene went to bat for Portia with the network and the executives to save her from being kicked off the show, especially as she was going through her divorce. And then season 6 becomes the highest rated season of a Bravo show ever. And Nene says, and when he tells her the number, that they were, averaging about 5 million views per week, she says, well, you said, now say what? Then we went from 5 million views per week to what they're in, like maybe 500,000 views per week. Now, what I will say to that is that I think that the ratings will be higher if Nene were on the show. I do. I 100% believe that. Do I believe that they will be at 5 million per week? No, I don't. Just because the state of reality is such that there aren't many shows that are getting reality television shows, at least housewife shows, that are getting that level of viewership each week anymore. I mean, it's just the numbers are down across the board, especially for the Housewives franchise and reality TV in general, because there are so many options. There's so many streaming options. There's so many, scripted options. There's so many just options in general. So I think that while I do think that, again, the ratings will be higher with her, I do feel like, and because she makes headlines, say what you want about Nene, like her or not, Nene makes headlines. Nene has that star personality. She has that star persona. And regardless of whether or not you think that she ruined her chances with the network, it would, to me, seem like a travesty for some other network to not snatch her up at this point. And I 100% believe that Nene and Carlos need to be working on something together, because, again, I feel like she felt in this interview like she was in a safe enough space to be totally revealing, totally open, which is what we love about those are the things that we really love about Nene. We get those things back. And if we could get that back in a very well produced show, package, I feel like Nene and Carlos could really, I mean, they're both individually doing great things, but I feel like bringing Nene back to TV in a unique way is literally the move, and it needs to happen ASAP because again, Nene makes headlines and it makes for exciting times in reality television. And it's one of the reasons why I was so invested in getting in this space in the first place was because I loved what the genre used to be. I still love it, but I just feel like it ain't what it was. And I felt like it's missing that star quality that Nene has. It just is. I'm sorry. They talk about season 6 being the best cast, and Nene says she felt like everybody was speaking their opinions. They had great conflict. Carlos was the EP. They all came together to collectively make that show a success that year. Now, the question is, was Nene jealous of Kenya when she came in? And she says no, she never really felt threatened by any of the girls. She always wanted to do what would make the show the best. Now, she says that they might have all felt threatened by her because it felt like anytime somebody new came on the show, they ended up coming for her. Okay. She says she feels some type of way about girls that come onto the show and just get a check. If anything, they're threatened by her presence because she won't back down to any of the girls. She talks of, and I talked about this in the beginning about how the level of participation with reality TV shows. There are some stars that I talk to. Um, I won't name any names because I don't want to get into too much behind the scenes talk, but they talk about how much they were trying to do to make events and things happen on particular shows. And, to sometimes see other cast members not do as much, but still be as liked on camera, it is probably very frustrating. I do remember what it took to make a reality TV show happen as you're filming it in real time. And there's so much that you have to do to make things pop. I remember going into my season of Stripped and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what this show is going to be, but I do know that my schedule will be so packed that we will always have a plethora of things that we can film, that we can do, that we can have organized. And I was diligent with working with my producers to make sure that all of those events and things that needed to take place could happen. We filmed at my job, we filmed like bookstores, there was all types of things that we did. Some of it didn't make it to air, but there was never a day except if I had like a moment where I wasn't really filming anything or they didn't want me to film anything. But there was never a day when we didn't have something planned. And so that's the type of ownership that I think that Nene is referring to when she calls it, the house that she built, because that it does take a certain level. I mean, think about even Beverly Hills at this point. When you watch Beverly Hills, at least in the past, and I think Kyle is very good at doing this as well, but like when there was a Lisa Vanderpump event, it was exciting. Adrian Malouf, who had all that money, we want to see that level of fabulosity. And I think sometimes with Atlanta these days, the fabulosity gets lost in favor of the drama. That's when they really get into they talk about the pillow talk party, and Nene was more or less annoyed with Kenya because of the lateness, and she talked about a lot of people being late a lot of the time. So sometimes you could show up to a scene and be in the best mood, but by the time everybody get there 2 hours later, you in a bad mood. I could definitely relate to that because as much as let me tell y'all something, I try my hardest to be on time for events, especially if it's a filming event, especially if I know I'm on the clock, baby, I'm showing up on that is one thing I learned from my early days when I was, trying to consider modeling at one point. And I remember going to the agency and I remember them saying to me, they said, when you show up to set, you need to be on time. You need to do what you're asked to do. You need to stay out of the way. And then at the end, collect your check, be liked, and that way you can be invited back to the party. And I remember all of those things. And so whenever I show up to a job, to a gig, I I'm there to give it my all, and then I'm there to leave. Okay. I've done what I'm supposed to do and I'm out. I didn't cause no trouble. And Nene says for her, that is how she is on any set. It just seems that with Housewives, that is the only place where she says that she has it, they have created a negative narrative surrounding her. Now, with this being said, I have to also indicate that there were times that it did seem like Nene, that season, that Nene seemed totally not in. She was beefing with Cynthia, and Kenya wasn't on. She seemed totally uninterested in being at that reunion, and she gave totally nothing. But I think also that may have been one of those seasons where she just really wasn't herself. So like she said with Carlos, she didn't want to do the interview when he initially asked because she wasn't ready. But now doing this, at this point in time, she's ready and she feels freer, lighter, more festive. I don't know. This is the Nene that we want to see. This is the Nene who I feel like is able to tell it like it is. There's a little bit of shade thrown, but she also is giving you the authentic of what she was feeling at the time, especially in building this show and how much it meant to her. All right. Um, and that's where we get into the Cynthia stuff and um how the girls could have all stuck together to make the show great. I do agree with that. When you think about, I don't know if you guys remember when Friends was on the air. Friends, they banded together with their, they all banded together as actors, and they all ended up making the same amount of money, and they made probably almost, probably they had history making numbers for what they were making per episode at that time because they stuck together. And I think that this is something that Nene is talking about. Now, I don't know if during the later seasons she really felt like there was anybody she could have banded together with to do this, but I do understand what she is saying. You do get further when you operate and you move together as a unit in these regards, especially when it comes to negotiating contracts. If everybody's on the same page, then everybody can really make what they want to make. But when people start getting on different pages is when things start to become fractured and you lose your negotiating leverage because not everybody is in solidarity. Um, Nene says she never really felt respected or supported by the cast or producers. And at one point, she was the only original. And then again, she said every new person was coming after her. And, she just wants to show up, get some water, and get her check and go. And that was pretty much the end of that. My thoughts on this interview are it's well timed because Housewives of Atlanta is still on. I think that it is, again, perfect timing for her. She's single at this point, so she's able to really talk freely about her experiences. And I love that she was just so open. I felt like, I'm not saying that Nene is perfect in any way, shape, or form, but I do think that she is an ideal housewife and reality TV star. And I think that she knows how to make moments. I think that there are similar. I will tell you somebody who I feel like is somewhat similar to her that I know that you guys may not agree with, but I'm going to say that Dr. Heavenly is another one of those people who I I c- and you won't even understand the reasons why, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that interviewing with Dr. Heavenly, interviewing with Carlos, I could even say interviewing with Monique, interviewing with Melody Cherie, and I've had some amazing Karen Huger. These are people who know what the assignment is when it's time to sit down for an interview. Period. And so that lets me know also that they know what to do when it comes to their time on the camera and behind and making things happen on the reality TV shows that they were a part of. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought about this interview. Was it as there I mean, there were some things that, of course, we already knew, but I think that there was just the idea that we have Nene kind of back on our screens in some way, shape, or form, giving us her commentary. It means a lot because she is a part of the franchise that really, especially as a Black woman has been a powerful influence on the state of reality TV as it stands today. So, again, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below. I am always appreciative of these moments that we get with some of our top tier reality TV stars. And I'm going to tell y'all, I was so sick. Like, I have really bad allergies. So, in watching the interview, I'm like struggling with sneezing and stuff like that. But, and I'm even on Benadryl right now. Like, that just and to let you know my mental state. But I was so excited to once I sat down to sit down and really discuss this, it's really one of those things that reinvigorates my love for reality TV and why I started this channel in the first place. So kudos to Carlos, kudos to Nene. I can't wait to see part 2 and really get into the nitty gritty of what happened between her and the network. I'm just looking forward to it. So, and I'm looking forward to whatever possibilities they may have cooking up behind the scenes. Because if I know Carlos, he got something always in the works. Okay. And I feel like this sit down with Nene, I feel like could open the door to us seeing something where they end up working together to make some more magic. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And of course, I will catch you in the next video. But before I do that, make sure you guys get into the trailer for my book, The Wickedest Wives, Desiree's Desire. Book 2 is coming soon. I will be revealing that information first, I think, to the membership group and to the email list. And I will put that up so you guys can actually join that. Then I'll probably reveal it and make it public, in one of our videos here. So with that being said, I will catch you all in the next video.
So, Desiree Davenport, what are you hoping to accomplish with this show?
Honestly, I've lost everything in the most horrible way possible. And listen, I want it all back. I'm willing to build it piece by piece, and I mean brick by brick.
Oh, honey, she is done. I bet you a Burke and she doesn't last all season with us. Just watch.
I'm Misha Hill, and I'd like to consider myself the matriarch of this dynamic group of ladies. I mean, someone has to keep them under control.
I'm Davita Delaney.
I mean, I think I could teach these ladies a thing or two about how to get and keep a good man.
They said she was a gold digger. She ain't hear that from me. I'm just really looking forward to being surrounded by other empowering bosses.
Yes, I know exactly what she's doing. And if she keep playing in my face, I'm gonna have to let her all her dirty little secrets, just like she did to me. And I'm not playing.
Let's get this straight. If I brought you into this circle, I just as easily can take you out. She ain't running nothing over here, okay? She needs to be worried about running that household and worried about why that husband of hers is never at home.
Oh, hell.
Ooh, child, this is about to be a mess.
Oh my God, I hate mess. What in the world did I get myself into?